Hello, hello, hello. Happy New Year. Thanks for joining me on the live stream this evening on January 1st, 2026. I'm so happy that we're entering into a new year. I've had an awesome 2025 personally, but I know it's been a crazy year politically and in a lot of people's lives. So if you've had a rough 2025, I hope you have an amazing 2026. If you had a great 2025 or 2025, I hope you have an awesome 2026 as well. So thank you for joining me here on the live stream. Uh, Currently watching your old speeches in Kentucky. Awesome. That's probably at the Fancy Farm uh, picnic that I spoke at in Kentucky. That was an awesome event out there. But thank you very much for joining me today. Today's live stream, we have a few things to talk about. Namely, I want to talk about what I feel is the top 5 political stories of the year. And then a little later, I'm going to discuss my choice for the Libertarian Party national chair from the current announced candidates and why. And then lastly, I'm going to talk a little bit about what I've seen this last year in my life and kind of what I'm looking forward to next year, both for me personally and for the Libertarian Party and the Liberty Movement. So thank you very much for joining me. I hope everybody, again, had an awesome holiday season, Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, whatever you celebrate, or if you celebrate nothing at all, I just hope the last few weeks have been great for you. It's a stressful time for a lot of people, but it's also a wonderful time. So, and I will be taking some questions from the comments here live, but I've also gathered quite a few questions on X in the last 24 hours. So I'm going to try to answer as many of those as I can and maybe take some questions live as well. So we'll just get right into it with this live stream today. And we are going to be discussing, as I said, the top 5 political stories of the year. Now, there were dozens and dozens, really hundreds you could choose from. And I'm mostly focusing on national politics. My last run for office was as the libertarian candidate for president. So I'm kind of staying focused on those national issues. Yeah, anyway, so let's take a look here at what number 5, the wars, they continue and expand. Sorry, there's a 10-second timer on this, but whatever. Number 5, the wars continue and expand. Let me see if I can fix that so it stays up there permanently. But really, I wanted to make sure we included this because, I think it's important to remember that foreign policy is a huge part of what has happened in the world in the last year. And it's a part that often gets ignored by national media. Um, that's a damn shame. For me, it's awful that we as a nation export so much violence around the world. We see so much of these wars going on around the world. But for me, you know, um, it's so weird that we can just ignore it. But it's really weird that Donald Trump got elected as the supposed peace president. He's dying to get the Nobel Peace Prize. FIFA gave him a peace prize, I guess. Israel just gave him a prize for, whatever. And, for me, it is let's see, sorry. Bye-bye. There's some lovely people in the comments today. But when I'm talking about this exporting of war, let's talk about the fact that Trump claims to have ended 8 wars, but really the 2 largest wars to which the United States is currently involved in. It really is the Ukraine-Russia war and the war that Israel has put onto the people of Gaza. And for me, I really think if we're going to see, and the supposed ceasefire that we see in Gaza has not really been a ceasefire. We've still seen plenty of violence. We have not seen an end to what's going on there. And then with Russia and Ukraine, that was the one that many people thought he would very quickly in the United States support of, but has just kind of fallen in line with the with the policies of the neocons within the Republican Party, and that's just a damn shame. And for me, the fact that the wars are never ending right now is a problem. It's something that we need to be, fighting for and speaking out against, and really as a united libertarian party and really as a united country. I'm really tired of seeing, basically, well, if the Democrats were in charge, they'd be going to war better. And also, it's not just Ukraine, it's not just the Israel-Gaza conflict. It's also the fact that we've now taken to bombing boats in Venezuela, fighting the drug war by literally using weapons of war and drones, which is a huge, expansion of even the terrible war on drugs now becoming an actual war. And there's no proof that these people in Venezuela are anything but fishermen. Honestly, there's never been any proof shown to the Congress or shown to the American people, other than these videos that Pete Hegseth likes to get a hard onto as he shares it with the American people, and that is a real problem. And then we're seeing continued airstrikes. We saw them in Iran. We've seen them in Syria. We've seen them in Somalia. Somalia in particular, if you look at just like the difference, and Trump likes to compare himself to Joe Biden all the time. If you look at the number of airstrikes in Somalia from Donald Trump's first term, it was like here, and then it flatlines for Biden, then it goes right back up again into this new term, and it's expanded. And it's just, do we really need to be putting airstrikes in like the poorest, like one of the poorest nations in the world? I don't think we do. And I think it's this strongman tactic that is like deeply rooted in the problems we have with American foreign policy, particularly since 2001, as I've been an adult. And so for me, that is the number 5 story of the year. I think we need to stay focused on this and push back against the war machine in 2026. I think we need to be insisting that any candidate, whether you're a libertarian or not, no matter what your party is, I encourage you, of course, to support libertarians and elect libertarians. But if you're a Republican or a Democrat who happens to be watching this right now, insist that you actually vote for anti-war candidates. At the bare minimum, could you do that so that we quit exporting our foreign policy around the world with bombs and bullets instead of with market trade and with cooperation and with free exchange of goods with other nations, which is really what we want to see. And we'll get more into that later. My number 4 story is that the Dems have moved left and the Republican has moved right. So those things, that's something I worry about. And as a libertarian who ascribes to neither of the political parties, it's been fascinating to see how kind of this hyperpolarization, like a magnet, has been like the same polarity of a magnet has been like repelling each other. Like the noxious politics of the two-party system has been pushing one or the other further across the political spectrum. And I think that's accelerating. I think you're seeing it with the speed at which the authoritarian right is growing within the MAGA GOP even faster than it was during the first Trump term. They're becoming more brazen in their actions. And then you're seeing this response in the Democrats with like the election of Zoran Mamdani in New York. Mamdani. And that is going to just continue, I think, throughout this next election cycle. I still think we're going to see probably, as you usually see in the first midterm election after a presidential win, we're going to see a wave go into the other side. I imagine the Democrats are going to get control of Congress. But what I worry about is what kind of Democrats, who's going to be winning those primaries. While I want to see anti-war Democrats, I would also like to not see collectivist, socialistic, big government, even bigger government than we have right now, Democrats. And as far as the Republicans, I would like to see a return certainly more to the Thomas Massie, Rand Paul wing of the Republican Party. I don't think that's liable to happen, though. I think what we're going to see is a furthering towards the neocon foreign policy and the authoritarian domestic policies that we've seen out of MAGA. And I think that's going to accelerate. And I think that's like a story that's not being told enough in the media because they are so entrenched in their partisan corners that they're exposing, the MSNBC is like exposing how far right the Republican Party is moving with the MAGA populism and the MAGA GOP authoritarianism. And then like Fox News is like focusing on all the woke politics and the left moving politics of the left, particularly with Zoran Mamdani again winning in New York. You have a Democratic Socialist. Well, I think it has a lot to do with the fact that his opponents were really pretty terrible candidates, like a sex pest like Andrew Cuomo, and God bless Curtis Sliwa, you're super in New York, but you're not electable. And so I think what happened is and I hope that this is overblown, but I fear we're going to see this lurch leftward, just as we've seen this lurch rightward from the other uh, major party. So um, I do think that's a real issue that I think most people need to be worried about. Um, and then I certainly am as an outside observer who does not vote for either of these parties. Like I have like a curse on both your houses. I have no interest in either. And in fact, this moved leftward from Democrats and moved rightward for Republicans. Um, that should be a golden opportunity for people like libertarians to actually start speaking to the sane people in this country who just don't want to see more violence from the state, who don't want to see less privacy, less rights, and who want to see like a return to maybe respect for individual freedom more certainly than we have today. I think there's a golden opportunity for libertarians if we take it. Now, my number three story, and this is going to upset some folks, but the truth is that I mean, for me, it's certainly true, is that we have a White House that is just like never ending in scandal. Like whether it's actual policy stuff, which there's a lot of that, and some of that we'll get into in these last two, um, or just like lying to courts when you're going to court, just really having terrible performances in court where like you have an attorney general. I feel like our attorney general is just so over her head. Things like the Epstein files, that is probably the biggest scandal to come out of this White House, honestly, is that they promised and promised when they ran. They said, we're going to release the Epstein files. We're going to release the Epstein files. It's right on my desk. As soon as we're going to send these binders out to Jack Posobiec and other right-wing influencers, and they're going to pose for the camera like the good propaganda puppets they are. And people will just forget. That's what Trump thought. We're going to give them these binders and they're just going to be happy with that. And along came Thomas Massey, and with him came three other Republicans and all of the Democrats who called Trump on his bluff and put the discharge position forward and forced so many Republicans to basically at that point have to jump on board, and even the president to have to sign the bill into law. Make no mistake, while Trump's signature is on that bill, it was the last thing he wanted to do. And I think we're going to continue to see more and more things coming out of these files as they're released, as they're legally required to do. And frankly, this is another reason why Pam Bondi should resign. And as we're looking at all this evidence, Kash Patel said there's no evidence of any trafficking or anything like that. I think that was a huge lie. And Kash Patel should also resign. Just my opinion. I mean, they're completely untrustworthy on this huge story. And so for me, and then you have just, just continuing, just there's so many of them that it's hard to really put into. This is why I kind of shoved it all into one big thing. But I think the Epstein files is the biggest one. A lot of the lies that have been told in court by our federal government, by the executive branch, that just the Congress completely absconding its responsibility, like Mike Johnson being, such a p-whipped Speaker of the House. That's why so many of these scandals just completely go uninvestigated. And I think we need to see a change. And, while I don't agree with Democrats on policy, they're certainly going to do more investigating of the executive branch than this Congress, should they win next November. And if Republicans don't want that to happen, they need to grow a spine and actually start, investigating the wrongdoing, even if it's their own party, because that's kind of what your responsibility is. Now, number two, flowing right in, these two are the two biggest domestic stories. First, the feds on our streets and ICE. I'm a libertarian. We should abolish ICE. It shouldn't exist. ICE is something that was created out of 9/11 and the Department of Homeland Security, and it can be undone. We don't need it. It's been a huge abuse of so many people. So the feds being on our streets, and this includes the National Guard. That's why I support Defend the Guard. But I also support Defend the Guard, not just for sending the National Guard overseas, but also to protect them from the president just activating one and putting it to another state. That's very, very wrong. And yeah, that's about it. I mean, I can't say so much more about ICE. It's just the abuses of people and just seeing due process being robbed of. They're not going after criminals. They're going after regular, hardworking people. And that's a real issue. ICE belongs in soda, not on the street. Yes, we should abolish ICE. Of course we should. But sadly, I think if we get a Democrat in the White House, they're just going to use ICE to their own ends. I mean, Obama actually deported more people than Trump. He just did it a lot more under the radar without this huge demonstration in our streets. And I fear for our immigrant population, now that this genie's out of the bottle, I think it's only a matter of time before the other party abuses it. My last number 5 story is tariffs and spending are causing inflation and slow job growth. This is affecting the economy across the board. It's making everything we buy more expensive. Everything we buy. It is it's hurting the very Americans that voted for Donald Trump, who thought he said, I'm going to make things affordable, affordability. And then also spouted that he was going to pass tariffs, which made no sense, but the people fell for it. And now they're paying the price of Donald Trump's voodoo economics, thinking that tariffs are going to somehow make us strong. When what they're really doing is increasing the price of so many things, even things that are made in America where components come from outside of this country. It's affecting our relationship with nations around the world. It's pretty awful. And we need policies that free up the market. And again, I fear that even if Democrats win next year, we're not going to get those policies because that's not traditionally what Democrats do. They're just as protectionist a lot of the time. And so we need to elect libertarians. We need to elect libertarians. And to do that, we need a libertarian party that is ready to go, that is ready to grow, that is ready to focus on elections, that is ready to see success where we have seen stagnation in the past. And I'll be the first to admit, I ran for president when our party was in a valley and not a hill. I wish I could have run when our party was fully flourishing in the ways they have in the past, particularly in 2016 was kind of our last high. And I want to get us back there and beyond. But to do that, we need leadership in the Libertarian Party that is going to help us grow. Now, right now, we have a chair, Stephen Nikela, who has said he's not going to be running again for chair. He's kind of in the caretaker position. But our chair before that, Angela McArdle, controversial to say the least, sold out our party to Donald Trump, refused to really provide any true support to my campaign, to the detriment of the Libertarian Party, while also a lot of things that have been investigated that, we can take a look at if you want to get into that, but I don't want to. I want to look forward. I want to talk about who's going to help us out of the valley and get us back to the hills. Who's going to take us from the lows and get us back to the highs? Who has those skills? Well, we have several candidates running, and I know 3 of them personally. I don't know the gentleman from New York. His name escapes me. I do know Mr. Yates in North Carolina. I do know Mr. Benedict from Texas. And I do know my choice for chair of the Libertarian Party in 2026, and that is Evan McMahon of Indiana. Why am I supporting Evan McMahon of Indiana to be the next Libertarian chair? Because he's had success as the chair of the Libertarian Party of Indiana, a state which is not one of the largest states in the country, but does have one of the largest and most active Libertarian parties in the country, certainly per capita, and has outsized influence and has done so much. And so much of that is due to his leadership and stewardship and him working with a lot of great people up there in Indiana. There's a lot of great Hoosier libertarians that I think we as a national party could learn from. And, that's what I want to see in our next chair is somebody who's ethical, somebody who knows how to run the party well, and somebody who has a demonstrable record of actually growing an affiliate that can be applied nationally. Again, no ill will towards the other candidates. And if one of the other were to win, I wish them all the luck in helping to grow the Libertarian Party out of the valley and help us focus on electing libertarians again, focus on fundraising and donor stewardship, focus on providing value for those donations. But I think Evan McMahon is the man for the job. So I right now don't plan on endorsing other positions within the Libertarian Party until we get closer to convention. I'm hoping to be a delegate from my state in Georgia. I'll be attending my convention in a couple weeks. And I hope to see many great libertarians there, as well as at our national convention in Grand Rapids. I'm very much looking forward to it and helping to look to see what we can do to grow the Libertarian Party. And part of that is going to be continued autopsy and examination of my campaign and what could have been done better and what the national party could have done better had they had better leadership to support the presidential ticket in 2024, as well as the down ticket, which was also affected by our previous leadership. So with that, I hope Evan McMahon wins, and I wish our party all the luck no matter who does. But I think Evan McMahon is the man for the job. That being said, I've had a wonderful 2025, you guys. While I think the country has been politically tumultuous and we've seen a lot of crazy things going on in the world, me personally, I've had an amazing year. I found love. I have gotten to take time away from being a candidate all the time to re-examine, my life, to get more time with my family. Got a wonderful job. Grew this wicked awesome beard that I didn't have as a presidential candidate. So I'm happy with 2025, but I'm looking forward to 2026, particularly with the Libertarian Party. I think we can make, again, gains. We can gain some ground because there's so much dissatisfaction with both of the main parties. And so I'm looking forward to it, but I'm going to answer a few questions. Let me grab this thread here off of X, and then we'll grab some questions from you guys if there's, good ones. I'll be honest, I'm not going to answer every question that goes in there because I know how the internet is. But let me grab. Sorry, I tweet way too much. And that's causing me to have to scroll and scroll and scroll. Here we go. So I got a good bit of questions. Joe Hanush out of Florida says, I believe he's out of Florida. How many times have you rolled your eyes when a self-described freedom-loving patriot tells you aren't libertarian because you don't want government to force peaceful people out of the country or to tax Americans via tariffs or ignore due process or punish the exercise of the First or Second Amendment, etc.? When basically people say you're not a real libertarian, even though I espouse like boilerplate libertarian platform beliefs. That my eyes roll quite a bit. Thanks, Joe. It's crazy how it's 2026 already. Yes. Would I run for Atlanta mayor? Probably not. Right now, I'm not looking to run for anything. Taking some time away from that. I think there are other great people who can run for things, including a friend of mine who just announced for the district seat for Marjorie Taylor Greene's seat that she has resigned from. Support my friend Andrew Underwood. There's another endorsement I'm happy to make. Endorsing my friend Andrew Underwood. He's a stand-up human being, and he's somebody who would represent that district very well as a libertarian candidate in the special election. So I hope we can support him as a libertarian candidate. I know I will. And for me, I'm not running for anything right now. Maybe one day I'll run for mayor of Atlanta, but I don't live in Atlanta right now, so that would be kind of difficult. But maybe one day. How does the LP get its message out nationally? D's and R's are terrible, and this should be the libertarian time to shine. I agree with you, Vic Blankenship, who asked that. I think part of that is finding good messengers and running as many candidates as we can particularly in states that do have partisan races. We need to separate ourselves. I live in Metro Atlanta, Vinny, not in the city itself right now. I live just outside of it. Um, and that's as detailed as I'm going to get. Now, what can we do to get our message out? So we can get our message out again by running candidates, and I think there are ways to smartly market ourselves in ways that are efficient and effective. I'm really big into the idea of geofencing and finding places where likely libertarians are going to be and targeting those people for over the top advertising through things like Hulu or YouTube, other platforms that are much less expensive than traditional airwaves to advertise. But that also requires us to have um, some really great advertising to put out there from candidates. And I think there are some great creative folks out there. I had a wonderful creative team, but there are plenty out there who can make well polished advertising. And I think if we smartly use technology to target those voters with the ads that will most hit for them, we can really bring out the libertarian vote, particularly with this great dissatisfaction that we see across the country. And it's a great question, Vic. So thank you for that. Again, these questions on X are not going to pop up on here because I took them from another thread. Let's see. The Arizona Libertarian Party said if I had $100,000 to spend on 100 libertarian races with 1,000 causing an increase of 1% vote total, how would you allocate the money? Well, I'd spend $100,000 on probably the biggest governor's race because then you'd win if $1,000 equals 1%. Or the two biggest governor's races get 50% both times. But in all seriousness, I think we need to focus ourselves on two streams. One, there is the community local election. And the type of candidate you need for that is somebody who is very active in their neighborhood, maybe a pastor or a teacher or a coach, somebody who is regularly in communication with the public, who is known to the public, who is trusted by the public. That's the kind of candidate you can run locally, because a lot of those races are not so much about big issues, but about like who's going to run my town council effectively. Who's going to be ethical? Who's going to make sure my tax money is spent well and not allocated to grift, right? And those are the kind of candidates you want to run locally for local races. Now, then for the more national races or statewide races, you want to run those people who can really effectively communicate the platform as much as possible, really nail it down, and really create the difference between what the Libertarian Party is and what the Democrats and Republicans are. And I think as a candidate for U.S. Senate and as a candidate for president, that's the kind of campaign I tried to run, is to show the big policy differences, that we can really spark those ideas, because those races, while they're harder to win, they are more visible, and it's more able to get those ideas in front of people and to make those ideas grow. Water that garden, while locally you're putting the nice guy who's known. He doesn't have to be the most hardcore libertarian. He has to be the most hardcore good neighbor. That's what I want to see. And they can be hardcore libertarians too. But I'll give you a great example. My friend Ryan Woodcraft out in El Paso. He ran for his local school board trustees, and he is now elected to that. And he got elected because he's got a kid in the school system. He's ethical, and he's somebody who knows his neighbors, who knows his neighborhood, because he also ran for city council and knocked on thousands of doors and was made known. Sorry, hit my camera, my bad. But was made known to the folks there. So I'd split it 50-50 between those kinds of races. Let's see. Do I see myself focusing more on activism or running for office in the coming years? Activism. Short of really me being needed to run for something, I'm going to take some time away from that. First off, again, I have found some joy in being a non-candidate the last year, having a good job, a good relationship. I'm not keen to throw myself fully into a campaign right now. Maybe that changes in the future, and I'm quite young. So maybe that changes in the next few years. But for right now, maybe the next election cycle or two, happy to observe, happy to help, happy to work for someone else. But for me, I don't want to be the name on the tin, maybe in the next couple of election cycles. Ooh, favorite band, asks Ohio Man. That's a tough question. There's a there's a ton of them. If I try to think about like favorite bands of all time, I've always been an old school punk rocker. I've loved like, uh, you know, No Effects, Rancid. I was big into Bad Religion. I'm wearing a They Might Be Giant shirt right now. Just went to their concert recently. Love them. Love the alternative scene. More recent artists that I've really gotten into. I think Youngblood is awesome. I think he is like the next rock and roll star. Like he's kind of like if Ozzy Osbourne and Mick Jagger had a baby. And so I'm looking forward to seeing what he does in the world of rock music because I really want rock music to come back. Like as much as I think it's cool to have good pop music and good hip hop and all that stuff, we really need solid rock and roll. I like Greta Van Fleet for that as well. I think they have an amazing sound. It harkens right back to Led Zeppelin, which is another old band that I love. Fleetwood Mac is one of my great band that I really love. Could listen to all day long. The Beatles, of course, like that's just like an easy answer. But and then there's like a lot of harder music that I love. I love Ozzy. I like Metallica. I love Sepultura and Soulfly. Those are some of my favorite bands out there. So you really can't nail it down. It's hard to say that I have a favorite because I don't. Even though I am wearing a They Might Be Giants shirt right now, and they're pretty damn cool. So, how do I even get a job in this economy? Work hard, keep focusing at it, build a good resume, and network. Meet as many people as possible. That's how I've got my last few jobs. Is not necessarily by cold calling, but by knowing people who are like, "Hey, my business needs somebody that you might be great for." So, um, why am I gay? Because I like men. Easiest question ever to answer. Arik Herman says the LP is very open to accepting new members and growing the movement. There is a common critique from peeps outside of the LP. Ask 100 libertarians what libertarianism is, and you'll get 100 answers. Do you believe that a more rigid definition of libertarian or the platform um, will help grow the party or movement? Some might leave, but more will come. Addition by subtraction. I think there is a need to have an umbrella, a very broad umbrella, actually. I think so long as you want to make government smaller, more efficient, and less abusive than it is today, you should be welcomed into the libertarian umbrella. The hardcore platform and the philosophy of thought that should kind of be reserved for those who have been here for a while, who have grown into it. Um, and for me, I think that's really what's important there. So I don't think we need to have a super rigid like entry level other than to say like be respectful, be respectable, don't be somebody that's noxious to the average person. um, you know this is why I like oppose things like racists and bigots and things like that because even if they support libertarian ideas or libertarian philosophy, they're noxious, and that is where you really get subtraction by addition. You add a few of those folks, and no one wants to join your party. So I do think that is important to kind of root out those who are intentional or unintentional, really bad actors, and put a bad face in the Libertarian Party. We should be a professional organization that is not completely a turnoff to 99% of America. So, um, having said, I didn't know you were gay. Just always know that Jesus welcomes you, bro. I'm an Episcopalian. I go to church every Sunday. I know God loves me, gay as I am. Um, and God loves you too, no matter who you are. Let's see. What races in states do you think L party candidates will show well? Do you have some candidates that excite you? Again, back to Indiana. I think they got some great candidates out there. I'm really looking at the field right now. Like it's still very early on. In fact, there are a lot of state conventions where they have contested primaries for the Libertarian nominee for a lot of these races. I'm going to let those play out, and then I'll kind of look at the field and see who is the best to, who I think I'll be the best to get out there and support in the field. Andrew Underwood though is an exception. He's a wonderful guy, and I want him to win Marjorie Taylor Greene's seat, so I'm going to go ahead and endorse him now. But there is, a lot still to be said, and we got a lot of time before election day. So I'm going to see how it shakes out and see what those races are where I think I can be of most help. Let's see. The Fongle says, "Why do my balls itch?" I don't know, dude. Go get it checked out though. It's not my area of expertise. I'm not a doctor. I just, do live streams, brother. Um, is there a chance Democrats and Libertarians join together to perform better in the Congress and presidential elections to defend the Constitution and rule of law? Um, I mean, a lot of the area that you just mentioned, Democrats aren't exactly great about. Um, but uh, here's what I do think. I think if Democrats or Republicans, frankly, embrace ranked choice voting and actually go and try to communicate to libertarians and to the Libertarian Party, not as give us your vote, but give us your second round vote, I think there's great value there. And I think whichever of the major parties um, goes there first, we'll see great success. Just my opinion. So let's see if there's any more here. Can I please leave the LP? Not a chance, brother. I'm a lifetime member. Here for life. Sorry that you're a hater. That was asked by a Republican, by the way. Okay, let's see if I can see a few more. I guess it's no coincidence that the theme on my mind today is striving for a world free of homophobia with some of these wild ass comments. Of course. Um, you know, as long as there are people who feel threatened by a message, particularly a message of liberty, free markets, and against authoritarianism and populism, of brutality and just plain meanness, the support of the state, people will try to find ways to be haters. Sorry about it, dude. Like, but you know what? Here's the thing: find a community that welcomes you and loves you, and f the haters. Love the Trek memorabilia. Yeah, I got a lot of signatures behind me. I have all of the original Star Trek bridge crew except for DeForest Kelly's autograph. I just got Christopher Lloyd's this past year. He was in Star Trek 3, The Search for Spock. I got a few others from The Next Generation and Voyager, and even some of the new people, as well as some pro wrestlers and others there behind me. I'm wearing a Star Trek pin right now. I got a lot of Star Trek memorabilia. In fact, um, I have original action figures from the 1960s that are still like they're sealed and still like in plastic cases, so they can't be harmed because they are worth a lot actually. Um, Good Lord, what's with the haters? Chase, you're a great messenger and you were a great candidate. Haven't these people figured out they got played yet? Amen, Ken. By the way, you're a great guy out there in Kentucky. If you're ever out in Kentucky and you're a libertarian, get to know Ken Molman. You're still in Kentucky, right, Ken? Otherwise, just ask him his opinion on bourbon because he'll give it to you. And he's a wonderful communicator of libertarian ideas as well. Great conversation. But yeah, sorry that there are haters, man. This is what happens. Again, when you start having a messaging that is chipping away at the propaganda of the state's little lemmings come at you. That's just kind of what happens. Well, that being said, again, not gonna let them get me down. Y'all are strangers on the internet. I have real friends, family, community, and an entire wonderful party of libertarians that I'm happy to support and be a part of. I found love this past year. I found a great job this past year. I have found peace and security and sanctity and sanity in not being a candidate. I've enjoyed being able to go to church every week. These are the things that I have missed out on when I was a candidate. Um, and why, maybe I'll be one again in the future, but not this next election cycle. I'm going to let other great libertarians do it. But what I want to do is make sure I help grow the Libertarian Party by supporting good candidates for internal office at the National Party in Grand Rapids, Michigan this May. So looking forward to that. Looking forward to seeing so many of you in person again as I travel across the country in the coming weeks, months, and years. And yeah, if I'm ever in your neck of the woods, be friendly and say hello. But in the meantime, Happy New Year, peace, love, and liberty.